You may know the 47 Ronin from the movie. A young swordsman, a quest for vengeance, a hero. That man does not exist. He was invented for the screen. The real leader of the 47 Ronin was a middle-aged government official named Oishi Kuranosuke, and when his lord was forced to kill himself, Oishi did not reach for a sword. He moved to the red light district of Kyoto. He divorced his wife. He got publicly, humiliatingly drunk night after night for nearly 2 years. People spat on him in the street. It was not a breakdown. It was the plan. This is the true story of the man behind the 47 Ronin and the weapon he actually used. To understand what Oishi did, start with what people already thought of him. He was the chief retainer of a small domain called Akko on the inland sea, responsible for its finances and administration. Even before any of this began, his colleagues had a nickname for him, Undone, the daytime lantern, a paper lantern lit uselessly in broad daylight, present, harmless, and pointless. He was not thought of as a warrior. He was thought of as a competent, unglamorous bureaucrat, easy to overlook. Then, in the spring of 1701, everything broke. Their young lord, Asano Naganori, was in Edo Castle performing ceremonial duties under the guidance of a senior shogunate official named Kira Yoshinaka. Accounts differ on exactly what passed between them, insults, unpaid courtesies, months of friction. But on the 17th of March, inside the castle itself, Asano drew his short sword and wounded Kira. Drawing a blade inside the shogun's palace was one of the gravest crimes in the entire legal code. The shogunate's judgment came the same day. Asano was ordered to commit seppuku immediately. His domain was confiscated. His several hundred retainers were dissolved into ronin, masterless samurai with no income, no home, and no legal standing. Kira, the man Asano had struck, was not punished at all. That single fact, one man dead for drawing a blade, the other untouched, is what the entire rest of this story is built on. Of the roughly 300 men who had served the Asano house, most did what any reasonable person would do. They took new positions, found new lords, moved on. Staying loyal to a dead cause had no legal protection and no future. A much smaller group wanted immediate action, petition the shogunate, or die in protest, or simply attack Kira at once and accept the consequences. Oishi argued for patience. He spent over a year pursuing the slow, proper channel, petitioning to have the Asano family line restored, to give the domain and its people a legitimate future. It failed. Only then did he turn to the other plan, and the plan required something almost nobody expected from him, an act of self-destruction. The shogunate was watching. Any surviving group of former Asano retainers who showed discipline, cohesion, or purpose would be suspected of plotting revenge, and revenge against a shogunate official was itself a crime that could end the last hope of ever restoring the family name. So Oishi moved to Yamashina, near Kyoto, and began to disappear into disgrace. He divorced his wife and sent her, with their younger children, back to her family. Not out of coldness, but so that whatever happened to him next would not fall on them. He kept only his eldest son, who would need to be part of what came later. And then, night after, beneath the drunkenness, something else was happening. Oishi kept up a careful coded correspondence with the men who remained committed, a number that had shrunk through 2 years of waiting from several hundred to just 46 others. Men with jobs, families, and every reasonable incentive to walk away, who did not. They gathered information patiently, where Kira's Edo residence was, how many guards it held, and when they changed shifts, the layout of its rooms. They moved to Edo in small, unconnected groups, taking ordinary jobs, a merchant, a tea seller, a fencing instructor, so that 47 men could be in the same city without anyone noticing 47 men. And they waited for the one thing they could not arrange, an opening. It came in December 1702, when intelligence reached them that Kira would be hosting a tea gathering at his residence on a specific night, meaning he would almost certainly be home. On the 14th night of the 12th month, in heavy snow, Oishi gave the order. 47 men in matching black raid armor, marked with white identifying crests so they would not strike each other in the dark, split into two groups and hit both gates of Kira's residence at once. The fighting was brief and one-sided. The defenders were overwhelmed within the hour. Several were killed, the rest fled or surrendered. The 47 lost not a single man. They searched the residence room by room. Kira was not in his bed. The blankets were still warm. They found him hidden in an outbuilding used for storing charcoal. Oishi identified him by a scar Asano had left on his forehead 2 years earlier and offered him the chance to end his own life with the same short blade Asano had used to end his. The honorable path. Warrior to warrior. Kira said nothing and did not move. So they gave him what they had come to give him. Carrying Kira's head, the 47 walked in formation across the city of Edo, in daylight now, past crowds who had heard what happened overnight, to the temple of Sengakuji, where their lord was buried. They washed the head at the well and laid it on Asano Naganori's grave. Then they sat down, together, to wait for the shogunate to decide what to do with them. The shogunate faced a genuine problem. Legally, the 47 had committed murder and armed insurrection within the city of Edo. The penalty for that was execution as common criminals. But the entire country already knew what they had done and why, and the public reaction was not outrage. It was admiration. These men had waited 2 years, humiliated themselves, walked away from families and futures to avenge a lord who could give them nothing in return. Loyalty with no possibility of reward, which was, by the values of the age, the purest kind there was. After weeks of deliberation, the shogunate split the difference. The 47 were not executed as criminals. They were ordered to commit seppuku, death with honor, the same death their lord had died 2 years earlier. On the 4th of February, 1703, they did. They were buried at Sengakuji, beside Asano Naganori. Their graves are there today, and people still leave incense at them. Within a few years, playwrights had turned the story into theater, and because writing directly about shogunate officials was forbidden, they set it centuries earlier and gave the villain the name of a different, unrelated historical figure, Ko no Moronao. We told his real story in another video. He has almost nothing to do with this one, except that fiction borrowed his name the way it borrows everything. 3 centuries later, Hollywood borrowed the story again and gave it a young hero with a sword. The real Oishi Kuranosuke was in his mid-40s. His weapon, for nearly 2 of the 2.5 years this took, was his own ruined reputation, and he wielded it in a red light district, drunk, on purpose, while everyone who knew him thought less of him for it. That is not a story about vengeance. It is a story about